Hey, good evening. Welcome back to ShredMentor Live. I'm your host, Jason Aaron Wood. And anyway, sorry about that, a couple minutes late there, but yeah, hopefully we're not going to have too much trouble. As you see up in the chat here, connection error, but looks like we're all set now. Hopefully you can hear me too. Let me know in the chat that you can hear my voice and the guitar as well, because that would really be a shame if not. Good news for tonight is that you can see me moving and stuff. I fixed the long-standing computer issues. It was some bitch-ass malware, which is not cool. So, anyway, now the sound and the video will actually work. So, thank you for those of you who kept coming back despite the increasingly bad video quality. Some piece of crap out there made some malware that was using my GPU to the max. So, they probably made a great deal of Bitcoin off of my computer, but whatever. Not anymore. It's over. Yes, thank you, Darren. I appreciate it. Thank you for being here, too. Okay, so tonight, yeah, I'm going to just switch right over to this. Well, not that. Yeah, sorry. I was jamming for a second with the drones when I should have been making sure that my connection's okay. Anyway, so we are going to go here. I like to start off with guitar practice tools, but you know what? I actually have a link for you tonight, and let's see. Let's just close that. Here we go. If you haven't seen this one yet, I'm going to throw this link up in the chat real quick, because there is a PDF that goes into some significant detail on the things I'm going to share with you tonight in terms of these music theory hacks. So grab that now. It's free. It's like 16 pages. You can follow along, in fact, because I'm going to go right in order, and I'm actually going to use it too. Once you have it, it will look kind of like this. Ta-da! And I admit openly, I just used a guitar wallpaper for the cover. I just don't care. This is free. I just wanted it to look guitar related. So there you go. 10 theory hacks. That's what we're going to be working on tonight. Anyway, let's go back to the main screen here. Guitar and theory hacks. Okay, I do want to say one thing. I'm going to just collapse the chat here. There's a lot of people who rightly would say there's no, well, to a degree rightly, that there's no shortcuts in life. The thing is, they're just not plentiful. And let's get a little bit more light so you can, so I'm not in the dark. There are shortcuts sometimes. A lot of them you shouldn't take because you shortcut your own benefit. But I'm not going to pretend that there aren't actually shortcuts. I've been playing for over 30 years, and there are very much shortcuts, especially when it comes to something like theory. And I just want to say real quick, time. You don't get to replace it. You don't know when you're going to die. Let's not be wasting it like we just have an endless supply of it. So when there is a viable shortcut, which is like what I'm going to share with you tonight, they're not massive shortcuts. They can save you a good bit of time. You're not going to skip the whole process. You're not going to skip the thinking. But certain thinking will get you in the game. You're going to be able to do certain things you wouldn't be able to do without this knowledge, but you don't have to constantly walk around as a walking encyclopedia of music theory knowledge in order to be writing and playing music and picking things out much more easily by ear. If you just want to learn your favorite songs, it doesn't really matter what your goals are. Knowing what you're hearing and understanding at least a little bit about how it works makes a very big difference. So save yourself some time getting there and get there faster with what I'm going to show you tonight. Okay, so back to that. Okay, so I trust you can all hear me. Yes, vastly better this week. I'll take that as a yes. Okay, so I'm going to be looking up a lot because I'm actually going to be following through in this just as my list of things to do. But the big thing I want you to know here is that theory does not actually have to be overwhelming. Okay, the way it's usually taught makes it that way, but it doesn't have to be that way. And I'm going to show you 10 things that I've either developed myself or just discovered that you can do it this way, and it saves you a lot of work and effort in the long run, and often in the short term too. All right, so number one, basically, I've said a lot of these before, but I've said this one too. Basically, just think in one scale. okay? I know that the music theory system of the Western world is built on the major key, the major scale in general, the intervals of the major scale, the types of chords that come out of the major scale, the actual notes at different scale degrees even have names, like tonic, which is the root note, and subdominant for the fourth, and dominant for the fifth, and there are reasons for that, but this is all based on things and relationships that actually happen inherently in the spacing of the major scale. I don't play in major keys, though. I use them, but I don't really try to make music that is happy. That's just not what I'm here for. That's not the kind of music that moves me. And, the music I write, the music that we have inside of us is a reflection of our tastes. So I just don't like listening to happy music. When I listen to classical masterpieces, I recognize that the major key pieces are masterpieces still. I just don't want to hear them. I don't care. I don't want to hear that. I want to hear dark stuff and sad stuff and serious stuff, and to me that's what's beautiful, and so that is what I want to hear. So it's a reflection of my taste, and I'm the first person to hear my own music and to decide whether I think it's good. So if it's good enough to pass my filter, then maybe I'll share it with other people too. All right, so this is where writing for yourself, it has to happen first. Anyway, so that said, minor keys are more like the sound that I want to make. And so if I was to adopt the music theory system based on the major scale the way it is right now, I'm kind of forced to do an extra step. I have to translate it over 6 modes higher, or 5 modes higher to the 6th mode, because basically Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian. That's a really long-ass way to go, considering that Aeolian is only 2 modes lower, but everything is taught, go up. Anyway, I think in minor scales, and to me, Aeolian is 1. I could still get that major flavor if I want. I just make it mode 3. That's where that lives. So I'm going to skip to the next one and then circle back to this one, okay? So the next thing I'm going to talk about, and a lot of these do tie together, one into the next, and they're in a certain order for a reason. I'm going to give you the second hack now, okay? The second theory hack is simply just whatever new idea you're dealing with, learn it in A minor first, okay? For alphabetical convenience. Also, however, because not only that, you also have no sharps or flats, just A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So if something starts happening, if you're familiar with A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whether you're on the piano or some other instrument that is in that key, just white keys, unless, let's say if I was on piano, I start playing a black key, I know something changed. What white key am I not playing then? So I'm going to use that because I'm going to illustrate things in A minor tonight just for alphabetical convenience. And I'm going to make that phone shut the hell up. That's probably one of you grabbing the PDF, and good for you for doing it. Sorry. I don't like when my phone makes sounds. It's always by accident. Okay, so there's my A, right? So if I'm just playing A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then A again, if I need to practice, a sequence of 8, as I modulate that up a mode, for example, from B to B, it's still B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. Now it's 8 notes from B to B instead of A to A. So it helps me to keep track of what it is, the concept, a little bit more easily just in my head. On the fretboard, that's still going to be a matter of finding your way around and stuff, and there's some tips for that coming up soon as well. But anyway, going back to the first thing, okay? Yes, so thinking in one scale, okay? So if I happen to deal with something where I hit a G sharp all of a sudden, now I can look, oh, G sharp. First of all, one thing you should know in general about scales, and this is not in the book, I'm just going to tell you now, so if you're tuning in tonight, good for you, because you're going to get everything that I happen to also remember to throw in. I wrote the book today, so, it took a couple of hours off, throughout the day, but maybe 2 hours. Anyway, that's the frame of mind I was in. Then, if I happen to think of something outside of that, of what I remember to write down today, now then you're going to get that. Every note in a given scale is going to have a different alphabetical letter. This is how we keep track of things. I know that as a guitarist, we might, think of like, I might think of this note as B and C. But if I'm in like E flat minor, that's the note I just called B, and this would be what we might call a B flat. Not in this key, it isn't. That would be E flat, F, G flat, A flat, B flat. This would be called C flat. Yes, there is one. There really is a C flat, and it happens when you also have a B flat. It happens when, that's when. It happens when you also have a B flat. You wouldn't want two different notes in the scale with the letter name B. Okay, we're not changing the B to flatten it down to a B flat to make that a scale tone. It's just already a B flat in this key. So the next note up has to have the letter C. This is how we keep from getting confused in a key. That's why there are 7 different letters involved. One way or another, all 7 of those are going to be involved in every key. There's just going to be a sharp or a flat in front of a bunch of them in certain keys. So I hope that makes sense real quick. So there's never going to be a B flat and a B in the same diatonic key. It won't be called a B. It'll be the note we sometimes refer to as B, but in that context it won't be called a B. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. It is a naming convention that's actually meant to prevent confusion, but considering, we're just in a chromatic sense a lot of the time as guitar players, it is easy. And I'm not going to chastise you for calling it the wrong thing or anything, but just for the sake of your knowledge, they should all have a different alphabetical letter within one key, so that no 2 notes have the same alphabetical letter associated to them, even if there's a sharp in front of one and not the other, because that wouldn't make as much sense as having an A, a B, a C, a D, an E, and an F, and a G. That would just help us identify them much more quickly. All right, so anyway, having this one scale as a default, which to me is minor, just natural minor, allows me to change that formula at will quickly. I can get to harmonic minor because I know the formula and how it departs from A, B, C, D, E, F, G. G sharp is what changes in harmonic minor. I raise the 7. Raising that note. Hungarian minor, I raise the 7th like that, but I also raise the 4th. That's what I'm hitting now. Hungarian minor. Right? So that is Hungarian minor. Melodic minor, you don't raise the 4, but you do raise the 7 and the 6. So there's the 6, raise 7. And melodic minor, sometimes I'll go there. Has an almost major sound because the only note that's not like the major scale of A is the C natural. So anyway, having one scale makes it so that I can still access all the sounds I want, but I don't have to keep juggling different scales in my head, okay? Because one thing I want you to know here is that the major scale and the minor scale aren't exactly different scales. They contain each other. They overlap with each other. They're modes of each other. Major and minor are modes. That's all they are. They're 2 out of 7 available modes. They're just the 2 modes that are sort of the main modes because they sound the most resolved when you come back to them. Otherwise, the rest of them have a little bit more of a tense, unresolved sound to them. But all 7 modes are also their own uniquely valid musical sounds with uniquely valid musical emotions tied to them that they generate. So anyway, by thinking in terms of one type of scale, it's going to save you a lot of energy and mental energy and work and possibly frustration and confusion. You just have to start assigning Aeolian as 1 and Ionian is 3. So I know that those of you who have heard that, well, doesn't the relative minor start on mode 6? Yes, it does. 1, so let's say C, C, D, E, F, G, A, or A, B, C. Which is the shorter path? Major and minor are very, very close to each other in terms of relative major and minor keys. My A minor scale might start here, if I'm in this octave. My C major scale starts here. So A minor, same scale, 2 notes higher, C major. Same scale meaning same 7 notes, not transposing the interval shape, to be clear. All right, so anyway, that is number 1. So yeah, major contains minor. That's on mode 6. If you're starting from C major, then C, D, E, F, G, A. That's where minor lives inside the major scale. And if you're in the minor scale, A, B, C lives on mode 3. That's where that sound is located. So emphasize that note as the root note, play the chord of that note, you'll get a happy sound right there in your A minor scale. You don't ever have to mentally leave the A minor scale, is what I'm kind of trying to say. This is a reflection of what I do too. Let's see, I know I said this somewhere here. Yeah. That's somewhere else. Anyway, yeah. I was thinking of something I wrote earlier, and I want to say some of the things I actually said in the ebook too. Anyway, so yeah, as I said, learn new concepts in A minor or C major first. So if you're dealing with like a new sequence, this is a good place to start, so you don't get lost. Like we would start kind of fumbling around on the fretboard. What note should I play? So if I want to do the sequence of 4s, 3 times ascending and 1 time descending to loop back to the beginning. A, 1 on B, 1 on C, and then just down 1 note and descend 4, E. That way, you know, if you at least know where your relative, or I'm sorry, where your natural notes are, it can make things a lot easier. So anyway, yeah, that's essentially and once you're familiar with the concept enough where you can kind of do it, then start transposing it into keys that would assign that same interval pattern to different letters as being the root note. It just makes things a lot simpler to start with A minor. And of course, you know, this is something that's not in the book either, but this also applies to MIDI. If you're composing something with MIDI, especially if you're kind of new to composing with MIDI and sequencing inside of the piano roll in particular, or you're not too familiar with the piano keyboard, just stick to the white keys. Find A. You can just look on Google Images and you'll find where the A is. Just look at several images just in case you accidentally stumble upon the one image that some asshole troll put up there just to misguide you. But yeah, A is, memorize where that is, and then there you go. You'll actually see where the space, where there's a black key, that's where you would have played a space on the guitar, skipping over a fret. It's the same exact interval spacing. It just visually looks a little bit different until you get used to it. I have not played piano per se, really. Barely ever. I know a little bit of piano technique. I am not a keyboardist, but I will say that I have been as familiar with the keyboard as with the guitar for 1 year less than I play guitar. So 31 years on the guitar, so that means I have been very familiar with where the notes on the keyboard are for 30 years. So it's my second dialect of music. Drink a moment for a second here. Mostly that cough that I've been dealing with for 2 months is gone, by the way. That's also some potentially good news. Not that I wasn't choking my ass off earlier today. Hopefully I'm not frozen on the screen like it looks on my Restream preview right now. So, looks like it's coming through nicely here, but I don't see anybody in the chat. So, just let me know if you're still with me here. I'm going to move on to the next theory hack, though, okay? Again, these are not going to be huge, but they can really make a difference. The next one I think you'll find definitely makes a difference, and my students tend to agree. Memorize the order of triads as they occur in your default scale. Okay, so I do a lot with harmonic minor, but to me, the default scale I think in is just simply natural minor, and not any particular key. You know, I am no longer getting used to new ideas in terms of theory, so I can just start in any key because I sort of know my way through whatever key I'm in. Thank you, Darren. I appreciate that. So For example, okay, because of the spacing, that just as a byproduct, really, as a byproduct of the way that the notes are spaced out in what we call the minor scale, you end up getting a certain order of chord types happening. No matter what key you're in, if it's a minor scale, you're going to get minor, diminished, major, minor, minor, major, major, starting from the root note. So that would be A minor, B diminished, C major. And we have two minors, so D minor, E minor, and then two majors, F major, C major. And then that would finish right back to where you started, minor. So memorize that. If you like thinking in minor keys, like I do, memorize this tonight. Minor, diminished, major, minor, minor, major, major. Say it again. Minor, diminished, major, minor, minor, major, major. That's the order that chords happen in any minor scale. It doesn't matter what key you're in. That can help you a lot. So if you're like trying to figure out the chords to a song, luckily for us in a way, a lot of music kind of tries to stay in one key. So if it sounds like that and there's no noticeable, like, oh, what's that weird ass chord, then good chances you're not going to have to be like consulting pages upon page of like chord encyclopedias. It's probably one of the 7 in that key. So figure out which one sounds the most resolved. That's probably the root, major or minor, doesn't matter. But find where the minor key sounds like, it is, and you can figure out what those other 6 chords are. And you don't really have to spend as much time, because your ears mixed with just knowing that little theory hack right there can really save you a lot of time. And also, obviously, when you're trying to write. I use this constantly. This is one that I just developed. I just started, see, the thing is, I always look for patterns inside of things. I'm like obsessive about it. I love to look for hidden patterns that no one else is looking for. And not because I need to have patterns no one else looks for. I just want to make sure nobody missed it, because I want to know about it if it's there. That's just to be clear. I don't really care about hidden secret knowledge. I'm giving it away right now. So yeah, just to be clear, right? So I do care about not missing out on a benefit that no one happens to have noticed before, though. So if I find it, I will use it, and I'll probably share it on this for free. So anyway, that's if it's in the minor scale. Now I did, say I don't really think and I don't write in major keys, but it's not like I have never done it. And so you should know, if you're going to be writing in major keys, you should probably memorize the order of that too. In a way, it's actually the same exact thing. You just skip the minor and the diminished and save that to the end. So major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished. So one major, because that's what you're starting on. Then you have your 2 minors and your 2 majors, same order as before. But then that minor diminished that we would have said at the very beginning of the minor scale, that's tacked onto the end. That's 6 and 7 now. Remember I said mode 6, that's where minor lives. Well, it should come as no surprise that the order that the chords happen in the major scale is pretty much the same thing as what happens in the minor, except the first 2 are tacked onto the end because they're 6 and 7, not 1 and 2. It's just a different perspective, a different numbering, because you're starting from a different point. Otherwise, same thing. So I'm going to go back to minor for a second, because I'm going to use this to segue into theory hack number 4, which is very, very similar, but, minor, diminished, major, minor, minor, major, major, right? Well, theory hack number 4, okay, rather than being concerned with finding the entire chord, or the triad at least, for the sake of, well, basically also knowing which notes to play, and what kind of chord you're actually playing at one time, what kind of chord belongs to each of the root notes in your chord progression, basically. In this case, what we're going to actually be doing is determining what kind of third each note in the scale is, for the sake of harmonizing. So if I'm in A minor, okay, it's actually going to reflect the minor, diminished, major, minor, minor, major, major, except the thing is, what we're going to be doing here is only focus on the root and third. What we just did was triad, so that's a root, third, and a fifth. So all we're really kind of doing is omitting the fifth now. We don't really need to concern ourselves with the fifth of any of these chords, because we're only playing the root and third, which means that the only thing that's going to really change from minor, diminished, major, minor, minor, major, major, is that on diminished, the only difference between a minor chord and a diminished chord is the fifth is lowered or diminished, hence the name. But since we're omitting any reference to the fifth here, it's actually just minor, minor, major, minor, minor, major, major, right? So the diminished becomes minor because all we're talking about is thirds. So minor, start with A here. minor third. Minor third, that's where the diminished chord would have lived right there on mode 2, major. So minor, minor, major, minor, minor, major, major. I'll do that without the distortion because it's pretty nasty up in that high range. But anyway, minor, minor, major, minor, minor, major, major. And then it would finish with the original minor. So there you go. That is a fourth little hack you can use. It's very related. So if you've memorized one, you also can use this to basically determine what kind of third to use with each note of the scale without having. See, the thing is here now, why is this a hack? Because you don't really have to think about the what I don't have to think about the fact that A goes with C and B goes with D and C goes with E. You can get there eventually, and that's fine. It's not going to hurt you to have to do that, but you don't need to process all of that information to be able to make the sounds. All you have to do is remember minor, minor, major, minor, minor, major, major. So it's just like, it's almost about to repeat itself. Minor, minor, major, minor, minor, major, and throw another major at the end. It's almost a repeat of itself. So you have one major in between and then two majors in between. That's how you can kind of tell where you are on the scale. But now all I have to do is follow the damn A minor scale. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So little quicker, you know. You don't have to. I just have to play shapes in the right order, and of course, if you want to change into harmonic minor, they got some extra stuff to memorize, but that's for later on. Anyway, so that's number 4, is knowing each third. Memorize the types of thirds throughout the scale as well, based on that same previous information. Minor, diminished, major, minor, minor, major, major. Well, diminished has a root and a minor third anyway, so all we're concerned with is that. Forget the fifth. Almost the same piece of information. This is like an extension of theory hack number 3. So moving right along. Oh, of course, the chords of the types of thirds. Yes, I had a typo in the PDF, and I'm catching that. Sorry. So if you're there, it's on page 8. It says the chords of the major scale. It's because it was almost the same information. I copied it from the previous page, but I forgot to change the wording there. The thirds of the major scale would be major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, minor. Again, major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, minor. So one major, two minors, two majors, two minors. Ta-da! That's it. That's how the thirds work in any and every major scale. And I'm talking about Ionian major, to be clear. So we're going to start getting into some other things here. I'm going to share this on the screen so you can see it, because this is where I'm going to start sharing a couple of images straight from guitar practice tools tonight. So, ta-da! There we go. So we're over here. You can just see the page. Okay, so memorize the triad stack. And what I mean is the way that we stack thirds from a root to a third to a fifth. Okay, the way that we form chords in chord construction in music theory is we'll take a given note, go up 2 notes so that we're not playing notes right next to each other like that. That's a third. Okay, a second is a bit dissonant. It's not like we never play them. It's an interval for a reason, and it can be played as a chord, but for now, just the basics of pleasant harmony. We're just good. Consonants. This is called an imperfect consonance because it's not as locked in as like a power chord, which is a fifth, but we're going to take a root note, 2 notes higher than that, and 2 notes higher than that. We're going to play them as a chord. Different octave, same deal. Different octave. Without the distortion, doesn't really matter. It always works the same. That combination, that's how we build chords from every note in the scale. So we apply 1, 3, 5 as a formula. Every other note. The note we're starting on is the root note of that chord. Even if it's not the root note of the scale, it's the root note of its own chord. But 1, 3, 5 is the formula we use to get that. Up 2 notes, up 2 more notes. That's how we do it. Every other note for 3 notes. And that is why we call it a triad, because it gives us 3 notes. Okay? So when I apply this to each of the 7 notes, I'm going to get specific combinations of notes, which are going to be different because they're different notes of the scale. So for note 1, it's 1, 3, 5. That's sort of a given. I just told you the formula. It's also the same 3 notes. For note 2, you can see this at the bottom of the screen, it's 2, 4, 6. For 3, it's 3, 5, 7. At 4 is where it starts to get a little confusing at first, but when you think about the fact that there are only 7 notes, note 8 is note 1. So when you see 4, 6, 1 in the middle there, well, that's because 8 is 1. It's like saying 4, 6, 8, but just 8 is not a different note. It's just the same. We only have 7 ingredients, so let's not start calling the same one by multiple names like we do when we actually talk about different types of chords, like a 9th chord, 11th chord, a 13th chord, and stuff like that. We're not dealing with that right now. Okay, it's just this. It's just a basic harmony. It's the most basic type of chord that there is, a simple triad. Now, this doesn't include any sharp or flat cymbals, so this will vary depending on what type of scale you apply it to, but 4, 6, 1, 5, 7, 2, 6, 1, 3, 7, 2, 4. Memorizing this isn't necessarily the easiest thing, but it is definitely a shortcut past trying to memorize everything by its letter names. I guarantee it's a lot easier to memorize this number pattern and start applying it to whatever scale you feel like playing in that moment than it is to try to memorize all 12 keys, or 15 as some very pedantic people in Facebook groups like to try to argue about. But yes, 1, 3, 5, 2, 4, 6, 3, 5, 7, 4, 6, 1, 5, 7, 2, 6, 1, 3, 7, 2, 4. Memorize that. As weird as it might seem, that is actually going to be part of also how you not only find the chord tones without necessarily having to think about it. It's sort of a bit more of a complicated extension of what I did here. Where you basically I did it. Same thing. Same concept. But what it also is a way when improvising along to backing tracks that you can actually find what you're looking for. So let's hit some A minor. This is A and F, which is 1 and 6 in this case, right? So I can play. Let's take a look over here at this real quick. A is 1, 3, 5 in this key. Okay, that's going to be A, C, and E in this case. Okay, these are just going to be natural notes. This is why we're doing an A minor. F is F, A, and C. Hey, look, 1 and 3. They're in both chords. That's pretty kick-ass. You'll find that in every 1-6 chord progression, whether you're in major or minor, by the way. In this particular case, though, it's going to involve the same root and third from your root chord, which are just going to sort of become the 3rd and 5th of the other chord. So let's go back over to that, and I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to grab an A and a C. This is actually probably a great time to whip out the A minor pentatonic scale, but I'm going to use the entire diatonic scale just for the hell of it. Definitely need a little bit more volume on the guitar there. Sorry, guys. Where is it? Let's turn that up a little bit. Yeah, that should hopefully not be too loud. Let's try it like that there. Okay. Sorry about that. Hopefully the levels are okay. Let me know in the comments. If not, A, C, A. Now an F instead of an E. E. So the only difference is E versus F. So the big difference here is I can play an F during the F chord and then resolve back to the E that is the 5th. There. So this might seem like I'm adding a bunch of extra stuff, but it gives me the freedom to not have to think about like, oh, what note is this? What note is that? Because I've already practiced. The trick is to take this and practice it along to backing tracks and also drones. All right, so I have drones right here set up in Guitar Practice Tools, so if you have access to this, use it. This is probably the one tool I actually probably use now more than anything else. So practicing along to your A and C and E. So just let the A go. Don't worry about the rhythm. Don't worry about chord changes. This is just the A part of the chord, and any A, C, or E that I play is going to sound resolved. Any other note in the scale is going to feel a little more tense. Gotta leave it there. Resolved. Okay, so it resolves in the end as long as I hit an A, a C, or an E. If I go to an F, it's going to actually be an F, an A, or a C. Still A and C, but I did want to put them in the order that they work in the chord, because F is now the main ingredient, and A is playing a supporting role, making the F sound major, and C is playing a supporting role, giving that power chord quality against an F. Okay. Oh, good questions. Thank you, Mike. Let's see. 135 example is where 1 is the root, 3 is 2 steps down, and 5 is 5 steps. I would probably refer to that by different numbers, but yes. So basically, yeah. The root, I'm going to refer to, I probably wouldn't use the word down. I think I know what you mean, but the root is whatever note we're starting with. In this case, A. 2 notes up from that, so B, C. 2 more notes higher in pitch will be your third, and 2 notes higher than that is, well, basically is 4 notes higher, so A, B, C, D, E. So it's actually like 4 notes higher than that in the scale is the 5th. So because 1 is whatever we're counting from. So hopefully that, but yeah, it would be A, then C, then E in this case. The B chord would be B, D, and F. The C chord would be C, E, G. The D chord would be D, F, A, and so on. Okay, so I can do the others too. E, G, B, F, A, C, and G, B, D. Okay, so then but that's like, imagine having to do that for every single key. I just did it with the easiest key that doesn't have any sharps or flats. Instead, just doing 1, 3, 5, 2, 4, 6, 3, 5, 7, 4, 1, 4, 6, 1, 5, 7, 2, 6, 1, 3, and 7, 2, 4. Okay, so it's in there. You know, I still have to think about it, but I don't have to like do it 12 times with different information. Okay, so I guess we could safely say it's 12 times easier than the other way. So there you go. Hack. All right, so with an F. Same thing, but now E isn't going to work. It's actually going to be, here's an E. It demands to be resolved up to the F. The B plays a very interesting role. So, it's a tritone. By itself, this is called the Lydian mode, by the way. By itself, this has what I always think of as sort of as like an innocent but mysterious kind of sound, because I do deal like as much as I can with sort of mysterious and not so innocent sounding stuff. I like sinister, dark stuff, but I really love the Lydian scale because it's sort of this dreamy, childlike wonder that I mean, and you know, honestly, it's the Simpsons mode too. You know, so. No, sorry. Let's try C. Technically, that would, because of one particular note toward the very end, it might be considered Lydian dominant, but I consider that just a change that happens at the end. So. Oh, whoa. Right here. that would be a dominant chord. So having that mixed with that. But anyway, I'm not going to count that one flat 7 in there. If it was a flat 7, then it would be Lydian flat dominant. But yeah, sorry, Lydian dominant. Sorry, it's not going flat dominant. Lydian dominant. But it's just Lydian. The part I'm talking about, that nice childhood wonder thing. You know, it's a very nice kind of... So now I'm actually in a different key. Sorry, broke my promise here. I went to E minor instead of A minor. So anyway, this would be F. Yeah, it's got that nice childlike sense of wonder. Mike says, thanks, exactly what I was hoping you were referring to. Makes a lot of sense. Yep, indeed. Sure. So yeah, I try to always simplify music theory as much as I can. And to me, I think the best way to do that is English. Not rather than using more music theory jargon, I try to put as much into plain English as I possibly can. Anyway, let's go to the next one, because we got like 20, well, not even 20 minutes left here. So anyway, memorize that triad stack, that 1, 3, 5, as it's applied to all 7 numbers. You can apply the flats where they would belong. If you're in the minor scale, that's 3, 6, and 7 that are all flat. So that, you know, apply it to wherever the notes actually are in whatever scale you're in. But just that piece of knowledge right there can help you find whatever you're looking for. Oh yeah, also, sorry, I did mean to do this to this chord progression here. So. A and C. A and C. So you can basically just keep coming back to A or C on a chord progression that's a 1/6 no matter what. So that's kind of handy when it comes to that, because they're a third apart, so they're going to share a couple of chord tones. All right, moving right along. Okay, let's get back to that screen. Yeah, there we go. Cool. All right. So anyway, you know what? I'm too soon here. All right. So another one, visuals. Sorry about that. Let's head back over here. Number 6, memorize the hexachord for each mode in the scale you're using. This is where we're getting into a little more like fretboard knowledge types of theory, but 3 notes per string is kind of the norm with the guitar. So this is a great way to take on at least most of the scale just under one hand, on 2 strings. It's very, very easy. I gravitate to E minor as my personal default key. Like I think in it, probably because of Iron Maiden and being the reason I started playing. But let's use that same exact thing. I'm gonna hit play and then go back to the thing. I'm gonna remix this track. It's so high-end, mid-rangey, thin. Anyway, so throughout that whole little thing there, I was able to find my root, my third, my fifth, as well as all their, most of the scale is just right there. In fact, if I need to go any further, I can just tap or just stretch a little further and or a little bit, I could do a stretch and a tap if I want, but root, third, fifth. And I also have my 2, 4, and my 6. So I actually have 2 triads right under my hand in just one hexachord. So you don't need to know every single letter name of every, note in the scale or whatever. That's not really necessary for this. It's not going to hurt. But if you need to process all that information every time you go to play, it's just going to slow you down. So being able to use these shapes and recognize just which note is which in terms of the chords you're playing over, and practice over some pretty straightforward chord progressions that use, focus on using the notes that matter in that chord progression. This is why my chord progressions are more about practicing and developing vocabulary and understanding how to use, actually apply these scales in a musical way. As opposed to the type you'll find probably anywhere else, which is like a mini song that somebody wrote that you'll never get to use other than to just show your stuff on a video. It's not, this isn't something you'd probably show off to, but this is really like going to the gym for your musical skills application, because you can really do a major workout and get pretty far with it by understanding which notes you're trying to land on. That last thing, as far as 1, 3, 5, 2, 4, 6, that tells you which notes go with each chord. So really memorize that last one. All right. So anyway, let's get into this one now. Okay. So this ties into it. I'm doing this one after the previous, the 1, 3, 5, 2, 4, 6, 3, 5, 7, 4, 6, 1, 5, 7, 2, 6, 1, 3, and 7, 2, 4. I keep saying it over and over because hopefully hearing it too will also be an additional mnemonic cue for you as well. All right. So say it out loud as well, so that you also have the sound of those, which can help you remember the notes as well. So use every memory cue you possibly can. But now, knowing that, 1, 3, 5, 2, 4, 6, 3, 5, 7. You know what you can find in every one of these triad shapes is that the triad tones inside of the hexachord are the lowest note and highest note of the lower string and the middle note on the higher string. That's always the fifth of every one of these chords when you do it this way. Not that you can't access the 2, 4, and 6 from in there too. The 2 chord is right in there too, or the arpeggio notes at least are the 2 and the 4 and the 6 right there. All right, and then same thing, 2, 4, 6 this way, but you also have 3 as the middle note of the lower string, and the 5 and 7. That's the root, third, and fifth of that chord. So a hexachord is seriously 2 neighboring triads interwoven with each other. 1, 3, 5, and 2, 4, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's all right there. So these are the very guitar-friendly types of things that will also help you to use the right finger combinations. In fact, determine right off the bat what the most logical, effective fingers are to use and dedicate yourself to them as the default fingers. The longer you let yourself keep using different fingers over and over, the longer it's going to take to get to any kind of useful motor memory. Motor memory is what's going to be doing your autopilot stuff. The whole point in all these hacks is so you can get a little bit more autopilot going without fumbling around on the fretboard trying to figure out which note you're at every single time you change position. That's not fun for anybody. It's not fun for you as the player, because it can, especially if someone's watching you and listening to you, it can feel embarrassing and you can get really self-conscious. And if you're not hitting the right note over and over again, it's not particularly fun for your listener either, let's be honest. Okay? So anyway, memorize all of your hexachords. You can use the 3 modes strategy, which is that's one of several that you'll find in the where is that? Wrong one. That one. Let's get that out of there. It's still coming, guys. The ShredMentor strategies is still coming. I am just spread thin as hell, and I will get there. So anyway, out of there, back. Anyway, coming back to this now. Okay, so yeah. Anyway, I think that's kind of it for that's probably it for the visuals anyway. So yeah, memorizing those. The three mode strategy would be to take one mode, say with your first hexachord, do a sequence with it because that always helps. Then move up one mode or down one mode, but basically you're going to deal with the 2 immediate neighboring modes of that mode. So you're not just taking little baby steps and adopting like one mode to work on today. Do the 2 neighboring ones too, so that you associate them to each other from the start. Every time you practice a mode, practice whatever you did in the next lower and the next higher mode also. So that was a 6-note zigzag sequence that I did. Basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1. Next note is 1. So I would move it to B next. Back to A. G. This is the 7 mode. Oh, thanks. Hexachord was throwing me off. Yes, I'm sorry. I just used that word. Like, I'm so used to it, I forget that most people don't know this. So a hexachord is a 6-note scale fragment. Pentachord is a 5-note scale fragment. A tetrachord is a 4-note scale fragment, and a trichord, which really almost never gets used as a word in circles I've traveled in, is a 3-note scale fragment. Beyond that, I guess you could call it, I mean, basically, it's an interval between 2 notes. A 2-note scale fragment. It's an interval. It's a second. So anyway, but you have a 3, 4, 5, and a 6-note scale fragment. Trichord, tetrachord, pentachord, and hexachord. You could go to a 7-note scale fragment, but it's not really a fragment anymore because you've got all 7 notes of your scale at that point. So anyway, yeah, hexachords are really, really handy as 3-note per string, kind of tools for developing motor memory that you can then use later for other cool things. I'll just take a moment to also illustrate that, because I just want to show you how far you can go with this once you start developing motor memory for finger combinations based on this. So I have this, right? And maybe this. So either fingers 1, 2, and 4, or fingers 1, 3, and 4. Okay, I'm going to move this to 1, 2, and 4 here. I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to use triads per string. So A minor and D minor. Okay, so I'm going to use the same exact sequence with wider intervals. I have motor memory from going like this, because doing those fingers in that order, well, let's see, so anyway, yeah. Are they always sequential or any 6 notes? Well, as far as I know, they are neighboring. It's like taking a microscope on a section of a scale. However, just showing you how I just used it, it doesn't have to be, the sequence itself doesn't have to be used that way, but the hexachord itself I would recommend starting with the hexachord first, because that's just sort of, that's getting to know your way around. Start with what's nearby and then branch out. So you can purposely replace the intervals with wider intervals. So you can do it with like a minor pentatonic 3-note per string approach with a repeat note in it. So that's what that might look. I'm just using the same sequence from A each time just to kind of illustrate how it would work. So it's taking that 3-note per string approach and expanding it. But you're kind of doing new motor memory, because the stretch kind of makes it a little bit like new movements, but they're not that new really. It's, basically, let's see. This is probably the only finger combination that doesn't happen in one of the regular modes, because it's like fingers 1, 3, and 4 on the lower string, and 1, 2, and 4 on a higher string. Otherwise, that you would get it the other way around. Like in Phrygian, you would get like from E, that would be half step, whole step, and then whole step, half step. But you get it the other way around. The middle finger is used on the lower string, and the ring finger on the higher string. But otherwise, the movements are not all that new. It's just this finger combination or this finger combination, and so kind of getting used to doing the same sequences, starting with a given, I always start with neighboring notes because they're close together, and then I try to expand them to something else. So that's how I've always found out. Just again, and I start with stuff like A minor. I just start with minor. My home base is that first hexachord, and I'm just reaching for super linear type of melodies right now, just for illustration purposes. Anyway, that is number 6. Anyway, number 7. I got a few more. I'm gonna cram them in, but this won't take long. So number 7. Joe Satriani has called this the pitch axis theory. You might have already heard of this before, but the concept of when you are actually playing, I'm going to go back to my drones for this, okay? When you are in a minor scale, okay, there are 3 different minor chords in a given key, okay? In A minor, they happen on, well, in any minor key, they happen on 1, 4, and 5. That's why 1, 4, 5 is so popular. In fact, in a major key, they also happen on 1, 4, and 5. So to give you an example, A minor, D minor, E minor, A minor. Yeah, very, very common folky. It's how you get nothing but minor chords going, but still stay in key. Unless you want to go, black metal, then you start throwing minor chords that aren't in the same key together. And I've been listening to Dark Funeral for a couple of days straight now, so that's where my mind's at. But anyway, 1, 4, and 5 is where they naturally already happen. But those are different places in the scale. So you're not necessarily going to move to the key of D minor and E minor. But over in A, I'll do stuff that's like Aeolian. But then I can switch into Dorian whenever I want. I use an F sharp now. And go back to Aeolian. And I could sneak my way over to Phrygian. And go back to Aeolian. Back to Phrygian. A. Dorian. Right? So that's basically the concept at work. I am able to shift between related keys because they're only one note apart anyway, and they're all kind of just one note away from the scale I was already playing. I was playing the A minor scale, but knowing which note to change to get to Dorian, which is the 6th, you raise the 6th from minor to get to Dorian, or you lower the 2nd, which means you got to put that 6 back down. You lower the 2nd to get to Phrygian from Aeolian. Getting from Dorian to Phrygian isn't a straight line. There's 2 notes different. It's not going to be as compatible. So those are not related keys. Those are 2 different notes apart. That's less related, which means it's not like you can't do the change. It's just that it's not going to be smooth like that, where you're like, oh, wow, yeah, that note. Totally. You can't, unless you know what you're listening to, you can't totally tell a key change happened there. It just sounds like, oh, yeah, I love that. That's so cool. It's going somewhere else, but it doesn't sound like a key change happened. But it did. So anyway, this can happen during anything. So I'm going to go back to the chord progressions just real quick. Let's see. This is A minor, G sharp, A minor, G sharp. Let's just start this one real quick and stop it. Same thing. That was Dorian. I threw in Phrygian for a second. Dorian. I haven't really tried this on purpose because, before with this track, but yeah, I'm throwing in Phrygian during that F chord just for a moment, just as I make my way back to A, and I'm kind of purposely playing like Dorian during the A minor chord. So I'm still using like A Phrygian or A Dorian on purpose because this was pretty much written to be played originally. In my head, I was thinking just A Aeolian all the way. In fact, A minor pentatonic especially. But what's nice is also the minor pentatonic scale has big ass extra space in between where you can insert whichever 2nd and whichever 6th you want. So it's You know, wherever you have those minor thirds, well, there's a note missing there, and you can either put the major third, or sorry, the major second or minor second, depending on whether you want Dorian or Aeolian for the major second, or the Phrygian scale for the minor second. And for Aeolian and Phrygian, you can use the flat 6, but for Dorian, you can use the raised 6. So they're all right in there. Minor pentatonic works for all of it. Okay, moving right along. So that's essentially what it is. You're basically just using related keys based on whatever type of basic chord you're playing. If there's a minor chord going on in the background, you can, and this works with a minor 7 too, because Aeolian, Dorian, and Phrygian all have a minor 7 chord associated to it. So it does extend to sevenths sometimes. Not so much with the major, because in major, Ionian and Lydian both have a major 7, but Mixolydian has a a dominant 7 chord. So that one doesn't work as all the way across the board for the same kind of 7 chord. But just knowing what to listen for, if there's a major 7 chord, and you're playing over playing a major scale over it, like if you're in C major, let's see, if that chord is playing, you can play C, or it probably sounded almost the same, but I threw a sharp 4 in the second time, which makes it Lydian. Or I can play a flat 7. In that case, the 7 is a whole step lower than the root, so you start to hear that one toward the ending. It probably stood out a little bit more. I've kind of tried to do the same melodic concept on those, although it was purely improvised, so it might have been a little different. Anyway, that's the pitch axis theory. Look up on YouTube after my thing. You'll find a recording from Joe Satriani. Look up Joe Satriani pitch axis theory. I think he does a very good. If you want to learn more about this, then he's already kind of named it, and I adopt his name because I respect him, and he's an influence of mine as well. So he uses it. I didn't realize he already had a thing on it. I had a student a couple years back tell me that this sounds a lot like that. I'm like, yeah, it's actually exactly it. It has a name already. So good. Anybody can come up with a name. They just need to get there and get it out to people first. And so anyway, number 8. Theory hack number 8 is make up your own diatonic scales. Just keep the 1, 3, 5 intact. Going back to the drone, I'm going to get the A going here again. You can get really crazy with this as long as I'm going to do a minor triad. The example I think I threw in here in the book is I like the weird exotic sound of Hungarian minor, so I'll use the raised 4, so sharp 4, but flat 6. So but then I'll use the dark sound of Phrygian with the flat 2nd. There might be a name for this scale already. I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, there's only, if you keep the same 1, 3, and 5 intact, you might probably happen occasionally on a scale that already exists. I mean, there's only so many different possibilities of a different 2, a 4, a 6, and a 7 with the same 1, 3, and 5. I mean, it's not like there's that many different locations. There's 2 different kinds of seconds. There's a minor second and a major second. There is a 4 and a sharp 4. There is a minor 6 and a major 6, and there's a minor 7 and a major 7. So yeah, there's quite a lot of possibilities, but it's not infinite. It is a finite amount of different possible combinations, and a lot of them you will already find exist, maybe even as modes of another scale, and might have a name even. So anyway, just encouraging you to experiment a little bit, because it's also going to cause you to think about what's going on from a scale degree point of view. Like, what is this ingredient adding to the overall soup of the sound that I'm hearing? You know, what is this overall scale? If I just focus on the intervals, the 1, 3, 5, what's that doing? That's creating a minor foundation, a minor sound. And we know what minor sounds like. It's the sad, serious sound. So then what is the 6? What's the flat 6 doing there? Ooh, that adds some tension. What is the Sharp 4. Ooh, that's like an exotic kind of tension. It's also really strong dissonance against the root by itself. And then what is the flat 2 doing? Oh, that's actually a nice ominous sound, in combination with the root, especially if you add that flat 7 in there. So it's like I combine Hungarian minor with Phrygian in a way. I don't know what that would be, but I used the flat 7 and the flat second of Phrygian, and the rest of it was Hungarian minor. So yeah, anyway, it's different thoughts. So yeah, that is one thing I would encourage you. Again, get the PDF that I linked earlier in the chat. Since we're almost out of time, I'll throw you that link one more time. Good, that's still in my clipboard. Good. Okay, 2 more, and I'm just going to hit these real quick because we are already 6 minutes over. So when we think of theory, it's often that our minds just go straight to harmony, which was everything I talked about so far. The first 8 theory hacks were all about harmony and the way the notes go together. But it's easy to forget that rhythm is very much part of music theory too. So the last 2 are going to be based on rhythm. And here it is. Deal with groupings of 2, 3, 4, and 6, pretty much exclusively, because those are going to account for so many of your time signatures. So, instead of dealing separately with 4, 4, 3, 4, 6, 8, 12, 8, and so on, and quarter notes, quarter note triplets, eighth note triplets, 16th note sextuplets or triplets, 32nd notes, and so on. Everything can be described as groupings of 2, 3, 4, and 6, and you don't need to practice each one of those separate things, because those are just, once you get dealing with 2s, 3s, 4s, and 6s, you start to realize that time signatures combined with different subdivisions of the beat are just a bunch of different ways of conveying an idea in writing. In the end, you're still kind of doing the same thing. This could be triplets. Or it could have been eighth notes in 12/8, or it could have been eighth notes in 6/8. Could have been really fast quarter note triplets in, 2/2. What's the right answer? It depends on what the rest of the idea is. Sometimes there are better options for what you're doing, especially if I'm like, 1, 2. If you need to break into triplets from what feels like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, like I did there, a little sloppily, then that's probably a time to use like 6/8 rather than triplets in 4/4. But groups of 3 for the most part, group 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. There's a lot of different scenarios where that happens. Groups of 4, there's quite a lot of scenarios where that happens too. 4 quarter notes, 4 eighth notes, 4 16th notes, 4 32nd notes, 4 whole notes, at a really fast tempo maybe, and so on. It's no secret that the main 2 numbers in terms of time signatures are 3 and 4, but that actually leads me to the final thing here. Anyway, here's the point though for this one, is that you're preparing yourself for the widest range of scenarios that you're going to have to face, and you'll be able to be prepared for all of those different time signatures and different subbeat values by just dealing with groupings of 2, 3, 4, and 6. I deal with this a lot on this show when I talk about the rhythmic theme of the day strategy, but here it is again. And it is actually one of the strategies coming up in the upcoming book, The ShredMentor Strategies. Leaving you tonight, number 10 is all rhythms come down to groupings of 2 and 3. This is a little bit of a built-in factor of the last one, but yeah, period. 2 and 3. All rhythms, no matter what you are doing, no matter what odd time signature you're in or whatever you're doing, everything can ultimately be broken down into 2 and 3. So no matter how complex something is, you can always work up to whatever that target number. In the ebook, I used the 19/8 time signature as just a crazy example on purpose. It could just be basically what you do is you look for your nearest normal type of time signature, maybe 16/8. It's not that normal, but it's more normal than 19/8, because at least 16 is like a multiple of 4 and 2, right? So how might I get to 16/8 notes? Well, maybe 8 sets of 2. And then I need 3 more to make it up. So 2 8 times and a set of 3. Or maybe something like 15/8, which is at least like the nearest multiple of 3. And then so 5 sets of 3 and then 2 sets of 2, because it's 19 I'm trying to go to. So 15 plus 4. So I'm looking for multiples of 3 and 4 largely. And so I'm just 2 possible ideas how I might add up to 19 if I wanted to play in that. And it could sound very normal. It doesn't have to be like way like jagged and disjointed sounding like some prog on purpose tries to do. And that's fine too. But it can actually sound very interesting and organic, because you have just an idea, and by playing it as groups of 2 and 3, it ends up coming up with, like kind of being its own rhythm pattern. So I'm going to try that 15/8 plus 4 extra beats. So it's 5 sets of 3 and 2 sets of 2. Like, there's a quick one. Making it up off the top of my head. I'm just doing a simple, 5 different little phrases of 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 1, 2. Right? The other one was, what was it? 8 sets of 2 plus a 3. So 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then 1, 2, 3. So another way to play 19/8. Again, not that 19/8 is going to be like your life's goal or anything, but just purposely just showing you how you can make this have an accenting pattern that actually kind of makes sense. It sounded like 4/4 until I just hurled a 3 at you at the end, right? So you can give it its own kind of unique feel and make it still breathe and have life, even like no matter what weird time signature you want to try, or normal time signatures too. But anyway, the point in this one is to make everything very achievable. So don't forget, break it if it's too complex in the rhythm. Break it down into 2s and 3s, because everything in rhythm can be broken down to 2s and 3s. With that said, and the emergency siren blaring outside my window, I'm going to leave you for tonight. Thank you very much for joining me, guys. I hope you grab that PDF. It can help kind of go into a little more detail, maybe a little less loosey-goosey than my particular delivery of it tonight. But I find all of these useful, and I've been using them for decades for the most part. At least 1 decade, if not more. Since I discovered them. So they are very handy to me. I wanted to share those tonight for you. And I was able to get to the number 10. I have more, but these were the ones that came to mind today that I found fairly easy to convey in about 1 page of a PDF. So go ahead and grab that in the link there. I will leave you tonight, but thank you very much for joining me tonight. And if you're looking for more in your guitar playing, of course, don't forget to go to ShredMentor.com. Fill out that form. Tell me what kind of influences you have, what you're trying to achieve with your playing and your music overall. Set up a free introductory consultation with me, and let's talk. I'm probably able to help you, but only if I know what you're actually trying to achieve. I do not do one-size-fits-all conveyor belt lessons at all. I focus on real-life music skills and project-based learning with specific, concrete, well-defined goals, and I get results. So if that's what you're looking for in your musical development, then don't waste any more time. You're already here. Go to ShredMentor.com. And with that, I will leave you for tonight. Thank you again. Please join me again next week, Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, for the next ShredMentor Live, episode 67. Until next time, rock on, my friends.